Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. My name is Nate Miller, and this is Givin Takes, the online sports show where every week I'm going to sit down and talk about everything sports related. What's happening in the sports world, fun headlines, look aheads to what will be happening, and some hot takes to go along with it. As I said, I'm your host, as always, Nate Miller, and this is my second time trying to record this second episode of Givin Takes. I tried to record this on Friday. It's currently Sunday the 22nd, the same day I will be uploading this. This will be up tonight. And I tried to record this Friday the 20th. I recorded it. It all went well. I sat down this morning to edit it, and the audio was just abysmal. It sounded like I was in a fishbowl. It was terrible. I don't know what happened to my microphone, but I went through, I fixed it. It seems to be working well now. I mean, if you're watching this right now, then that means the audio did turn out good, because obviously it got posted to YouTube. But yeah, I had to tweak a couple things, a little bit of writing and bullet points that I had in my outline for this week because, a lot of things have happened over the last 2 days in the world of sports, especially the gold and bronze medal Olympic hockey games for the men that took place this morning. So I had to do a couple little tweaks, but it's going to still mostly be the same episode as I originally intended on. So it's going to be a good one. But before we start, I do have to shout out the late, great Bill Mazeroski. He passed away this weekend. As a Pirates fan, that one hits hard. Hit the greatest home run in the history of baseball. 1960 World Series, Pirates-Yankees, Game 7, tied at 9. Hits a walk-off home run. The only time Game 7 of the World Series has ever been won by a walk-off home run. And he did it. The man, the myth, the Maz. He will be dearly missed. Rest in peace to a legend. Now, a couple more housekeeping things I want to say before I get into the starting nine. Chapters that are on the timeline, so people can skip to different parts of the video based off certain topics they want me to hear. Got a lot of comments and feedback of people telling me they want me to have those on the timeline. I went back and I worked at trying to get them onto the timeline for my first episode. It didn't work. I troubleshooted it for a while, and I promise, I'm not kidding here. It seemed like the only reason that they're not popping up on the timeline right now is because I don't have 1,000 subscribers. I've followed every other step. I dotted all my T's, or I crossed all my T's and dotted my I's. I didn't do the other thing because that'd mean I messed up. But I followed the steps. It wasn't working. The only other reason I saw online that it wouldn't be working is just because of a low subscriber count. So I think we're in the mid-40s right now, and I guess if you want to see those chapters on the timeline while you're watching, then just go ahead and subscribe. Get that number up. I will be doing something special for 100 subscribers, so whenever we get there, you'll see what that is. So subscribe if you are excited to see that. And follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Givin Takes on both. It's where I'm going to be more consistently posting reels and, TikToks, obviously. I posted a couple last week because I was learning the editing software, but now that I'm more proficient in it a little bit, I should hopefully be able to get out one every day. So follow me on those if you want to look forward to that short form content. So with all that out of the way and without further ado, let's get into the starting nine. Leading off, we're going to be talking about NBA All-Star Weekend. I'm going to go over the three-point contest, the dunk contest, and the round-robin games that took place between the two U.S. teams and the world. I thought some parts of All-Star Weekend were really good, and some parts fell flat. After that, we're going to be moving, same league, but talking about a different issue, tanking in the NBA. It's a problem. It needs fixed. And we're going to talk about how it could be fixed and the steps that Adam Silver is currently taking to fix it. Then we're going to move down to our three-hole subject, which is college baseball. It's back. It's fun. I found 3 fun headlines that I want to share with you guys and just help you dip your toes a little bit into what's happening in college baseball. Because I know with everything else that's happening in sports, college baseball isn't exactly what's on the forefront of everybody's mind right now, and understandably so. But you guys need to be kept in the know because college baseball is fun. Then we're going to be moving down to our cleanup subject, our 4-hole topic, the A.B.S. challenge system. This will be the first year it is implemented at the major league level for the entirety of the regular and postseason. So I'm going to break down what exactly that system is and a lot of the caveats that are going to come along with it. Some good, some bad, and then just, I'm going to give takes on how I feel about those. Then we're going to move down to the 5 spot, Olympic hockey. As I said earlier, the gold and bronze medal games for the men's hockey tournament took place this morning, so I'm going to break those down, along with the women's medal games and just a couple of my other favorite moments from the tournament. Then after that, moving down to our 6th spot, we're going to be doing bracketology. I'm going to be breaking down Lenardi's bracket that he posted on, I believe it was Monday of this week, so about 6 days ago from when I'm recording this. I'm going to break down that bracket, go through each region, give you a team that I think is an underdog that can go on and win a couple games, my favorite matchup in each region, and a higher seed that I think is very prone to an upset in the first round. Then, our final 3 subjects, we're going to go to our 7-hole, which will always be our State of the Union. This week, it's going to be the Chicago Bulls. I think they're a mess, and I'm going to talk about it. Then after that, going down to Tyreek Hill, who was just released by the Dolphins. I picked 4 landing spots that I like for Tyreek Hill, and as long as he's not a problem in the locker room, I think all 4 of these teams might get launched to legitimate Super Bowl contenders if they're able to add Tyreek Hill in free agency. And then finally, we are going to be talking about, in the 9-hole spot, Floyd Mayweather fighting Mike Tyson. Yes, that is a real fight. No, I am not making that up. I have some. That'll be probably the only rant part of this video, because I have some thoughts. I hate that, and I'll break that down a little bit later. And then finally, the last thing, how we end every episode, it is going to be our top 10 list. What will the subject of the top 10 be? Well, you're either going to have to skip all the way to the end to see it, or watch me talk for about an hour before I get to it. So without further ado, let's get into our lead-off topic, NBA All-Star Weekend. Like I said, parts of it were really good. Parts of it, I think, fell flat on its face. The most mundane and normal event, I think, was the three-point contest. It was good. It's what you expect every year. People shooting threes, people making threes, people like Devin Booker missing a lot of important threes to win the event. But ultimately, it was Damian Lillard who took it home, and he hasn't even played a game this year and still shows that he can shoot the 3 ball better than most people in this league, which is also why I find it exciting that him, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry are recruiting some of the marquee three-point shooters in the league to participate in next year's dunk contest. I think that's super fun. I think that's going to create a great product, and I think the three-point contest, as long as that sentiment holds true from Lillard, Thompson, and Steph, that's going to be must-watch TV next year if they can get the best three-point shooters in the league all out. You know, James Harden, you got to get him in there still. Luka, get him in there still. A couple other guys. I'm not too keen on who the best shooters are in the league right now, but you know, those big names like that, if we get those guys in there, that's going to be great TV. What's not a great TV, at least currently, is the dunk contest. I mean, Miami's Keyshawn Johnson took it home over Carter Bryant by 4.2 points. And even though that may sound exciting, you'll know if you watched it, it wasn't exciting. It was actually very boring, in my opinion, because every dunk just seemed recycled. It seemed like a copy of a dunk we've seen before. And I understand that a lot of these guys can't just go out and create a new dunk on a whim, but it just seems like every year it's just someone jumping over a person or a car, or they're tapping the ball off the backboard, or they're just doing a 360 going between the legs. Like, yes, those are amazing, impressive athletic feats, and I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but in terms of entertainment value while watching the dunk contest, we've seen all those kinds of dunks before several times. Like, especially over the last 5 years, every dunker, I feel like, outside of Mac McClung is just going on YouTube and seeing like what dunk won the contest in 1986, and then they're going and they're doing that dunk. Or what dunk won the contest in 2014? They're doing that dunk. Like, we're not seeing the creativity and like the pioneering of new dunks that we saw 10 years ago when it was Aaron Gordon going up against Zach LaVine going 50 for 50 in the best dunk contest anyone's ever seen. I mean, I don't want to compare every dunk contest to the best dunk contest ever, but It feels like we haven't even gotten that exciting of a dunk contest into this decade. And it needs fixed. So how do we fix it? Well, my first idea is either lowering or higher the rim. I know it sounds crazy because the rim's always been at 10 feet for everything. But just think about it for a sec. You move it up to 12 feet. Now every dunk, no matter what it is just made more impressive by the fact that you have to get the ball up 2 feet higher. It requires so much more athleticism. So even if the dunks are a little bit simpler, you at least know that they're dunking on a 12-foot rim. So that just inherently makes them more impressive. And on the flip side, you can go and actually lower the rim down to 9 feet. Now you're going to give guys a lot more space to just do crazy stuff in the air. They don't have to get up as high, so they can work on making it look flashier on their way up. You can have them skyrocket above the rim. Granted, take it with a grain of salt, it's only 9 feet. But you can just create more aesthetically pleasing dunks, which may not be the best solution, making it 9 feet. I think 12 feet would definitely be better. But I think moving the rim would, honestly, at this point, would be the only real way to do it. Unless you went the slam ball route and made the floor trampolines instead of hardwood. So you got people flipping in the air 9 times before they dunk. I just don't know what else you could do to make it more entertaining at this point. But I do also want to give credit to Mac McClung. Sorry. I do want to give credit to Mac McClung because even though he didn't participate in this year's dunk contest, he posted videos online of the dunks he would have done had he been in the dunk contest, and those were far and away more impressive than any dunk I saw actually take place in the contest itself. I mean, how come is he just that special of a talent to where he's the only one that takes it seriously enough to actually go out and spend time to create new dunks? Maybe, but I feel like there are a lot of other people in the league who have really good athleticism and time to curate and create just very good dunks. I don't believe Mac McClung's the only person to do that, so I'm also not sure why every dunk he just posted online was more entertaining to watch than a single dunk that we saw in the contest. I mean, I don't know. It's bad. It needs fixed. And I think the first step is probably, move up the rim to 11, 12 feet, make it a little bit harder. Or just find guys to come to the dunk contest that are actually willing to put in the time and effort to make good dunks. Now with that, I'm going to move into the final event of NBA All-Star Weekend, which was the round-robin games. I thought those were so much fun. I thought those were great. You had the youngins, the OGs in the world going at it, or as they called the youngins and OGs, the Stars and Stripes teams for the U.S. I was very pleasantly surprised with the product we got. I figured there would be a little bit more intensity given the new format, as I said in last week's episode, but I really wasn't expecting this. Gave shades of 2020 in terms of we saw defense being played the whole time, which I thought was such a pleasant surprise. Because, like I said last week, when you have the best going up against the best, you want to see them legitimately trying to win because that's what the All-Star Game used to be, and that's what the All-Star Game needs to get back to. And I think this year we took a major step in the right direction. However, I do still think there was some lackluster effort from the World side. There were a lot of players on the World who gave a solid amount of effort. There were players like Luka and Jokic who just could not have been bothered to be there, which is really unfortunate because I feel like if they had tried a little bit more, it would have been much more entertaining to watch that collection of world players play together. I mean, just Shea, Luka, Jokic, and Wemby alone, those four are just absolutely unreal. So if all four of them would have been playing their absolute hardest, I think it would have been a lot more fun to watch. That's not to say it wasn't fun, though. Like I said, it was still very fun. Victor Wembanyama is must-watch in the All-Star Game every year. He gives 110%. It reminds me of how Kobe would play in the All-Star Game, which is the intensity he brings to the game. I think it's so much fun. And if you're not watching Victor Wembanyama on a nightly basis, you need to start because he is one hell of a player. And in the All-Star Game, I love the intensity he brings. I love the passion that he shows for the game of basketball. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of it, I think, that I have for NBA All-Star Weekend. Dunk contest needs fixed. 3-point contest, fine. The actual All-Star games on the up and up, but if this format goes stale next year, because I think you should keep this format the same going into next year, the stars and stripes, just the old guys and the young guys against the world, I think you need to keep that. But if that intensity starts to dwindle and there's people who aren't really playing defense, then I think you need to go out and try to rework the format again, because my opinion is that these formats are going to have probably like 2 or 3 year lifespans before they get stale with the players. So we're going to need to be constantly finding ways to change up the format, keep it fresh, and keep these people competing. Because I think I speak for almost everyone when I say that was the most entertaining collection of all-star games that we have seen since 2020 and that amazing fourth quarter with those guys competing for charity. So with all that being said, I think it's time to stay within the NBA and move into a different subject. This time it's tanking. Tanking is a serious problem, and it needs to be fixed. Why does it need to be fixed? Well, mostly because if you're a fan of a bad team and you have to go out and watch them like legitimately try to lose on a nightly basis, that's no fun. That loses viewership in what a lot of people are calling a dying league. So not only do fans think it needs to be fixed and have thought it needed to be fixed for a long time, but this year I think it's more evident than ever, and now Adam Silver is finally starting to catch on and try to help prevent that tanking. I mean, if you look at the fines that he had just given out, he gave out a couple of roster management fines, one to the Jazz for $500,000, one for the Pacers for $100,000. And I understand why teams are tanking, of course, because when you look at the value of the number one overall pick since 2020, I mean, in most of these years, you're getting a franchise player just by picking first overall and making the right choice. I mean, Anthony Edwards in 2020, Cade Cunningham in 2021, Paolo Banchero in 2022, Victor Wembanyama in 2023. We're going to skip over 2024. And Cooper Flagg in 2025. I mean, though that starting five right there is just absolutely unbelievable. And all five of those players are franchise guys. And that is exactly why these guys are tanking. Because if you can be bad enough to get the number one overall pick, boom, franchise player, you're good. Like, that's just kind of what the trend has been since 2020. And obviously going back even farther, number one overall picks have always been, for most of the time, pretty good. But I feel like especially this decade, the quality of the number one overall pick compared to the rest of the field, it's just, there's such a big gap. And originally this was going to be kind of a rant and mixed with like all right, what are my opinions on how we fix tanking? But luckily for me, to save me some thinking time and some writing, there was a GM's meeting for the NBA on Thursday the 19th, and there were a lot of anti-tanking ideas that were proposed and discussed. These were all released via Shams on Twitter. So there are 7 of these here. I'm going to go through all 7 really quickly, break them down a little bit, and give you my takes on which of these I think should be implemented and which of these are just kind of like it's good you threw out the idea, but in practicality, it probably won't work that well. So starting off, first round picks are only going to be able to be protected by top 4 and top 14 plus now, as compared to what I believe it used to be top 5, top 10, top 15. It's a little, or at least, definitely at least top 5 and top 10. But that's just a slight change. I don't think that's as big of a deal. I can understand why they would want to implement it, but I don't think that is going to make necessarily the strides that they want to see in tanking. Lottery odds are now going to freeze at the trade deadline or at a later date, which I think is a little interesting because just think of this scenario real quick. Imagine the Heat in 2023. They're down at the 8th seed or lower at the time of the trade deadline. They're not a good team. Their lottery odds freeze, say, like 18% or something, being that they're one of the not-so-good teams in the league. Well, with that being said, that Miami Heat team went on to lose in the NBA Finals to the Denver Nuggets. So I don't like this one because now you're potentially freezing lottery odds for bad teams that, as unlikely as that Heat run was, I'm not saying that's just going to happen again because we may never see that again. But the fact that it is possible for a team to have really high lottery odds and then just go on a good run during the finals tournament to get to the NBA Finals, well, now you're talking about a runner-up team who could be like picking third overall because of their great lottery odds. So that alone can't happen, but there are a couple other rules lower on this list that kind of complement that rule, that to where if those were to be implemented alongside it, then I do think that lottery odds freezing thing could work. But if that just goes in standalone, then I think that's a terrible idea. So the next two rules, the ones that I think will complement that lottery odds freezing, are teams are no longer going to be allowed to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. This one, as much as the next one, doesn't really apply to the previous rule, but I think this is smart. Anything to motivate these teams to not finish in the bottom 3 and keep playing their hearts out late into the season, I think is good. Especially if if you just finish 4th worst, then you're able to pick top 4. So you're going to have teams like if the Pelicans and Kings play next year, it's not going to be a dumpster fire of a game. It'll be 2 teams trying to compete and better their record because they want to be able to get a top 4 pick next year. I think that is a very good rule. And another rule that is kind of similar to that is teams are not going to be able to pick in the top 4 the year after making the conference finals. So kind of in that Miami Heat example I just gave, if this rule were to be implemented, that would kind of neutralize that situation from happening where a team goes on to make the finals where they had bad lottery odds or good lottery odds at the deadline, but then went on a run. They weren't allowed to be able to pick in the top 4. Could they pick 5th? Yes. Is that really that good? I mean, yeah, it's still a little bit higher than people would probably like to see a team that just made the finals pick, but you can't have it both ways. So far, I think a lot of these things are good. These last 3 are just kind of like they're probably going to put them in there. I don't think they're going to make huge effects. Lottery odds are going to be allocated on 2-year records now instead of just single season records, which I think is interesting. That's something I'm gonna need to see how that plays out, I think, because I haven't really made up my mind on how I feel about that subject. And then these final 2, just lottery odds are going to be extended to include play-in teams this year, and lottery odds are going to flatten for all teams. So they're all going to be a little bit worse for everybody. So taking good strides. I think the biggest one is teams not being allowed to pick top 4 in consecutive years after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. I think that's a big step in the right direction. Motivate teams to not be the worst, which it seems like right now every team is motivated to be the worst. So I think Adam Silver and the GMs had a productive meeting, and I think hopefully some of these things are going to be instituted into the league next year, and we're going to start seeing more bad teams with decent players on their rosters trying to win come February, March, April, even though they're out of the playoff race. So that's all I have for the NBA for now. We will be circling back to that league a little bit later, talking about the Bulls. But for now, I'm going to give you those 3 headlines I really like in college baseball. After the first week of college baseball, I'm going to start off with talking about my Michigan State Spartans. If you are not familiar, they won the series against the 8th ranked Louisville Cardinals on the road. So they went to Louisville, took 2 out of 3 from them, the number 8 ranked team in the country. I'd say that's probably the series upset of the week, and I'm just lucky that it happens to be the Spartans, so I get to have some fun talking about it. That was a really impressive series. The Spartans are playing Texas right now. I know they dropped game 1 yesterday, so we're going to see how they progress throughout that series. Hopefully, they're the number 3 ranked team on the road now, so it's definitely a more daunting, a tougher task, but hopefully they can pull something together. And if you even take 1 game from the Longhorns, I think that's still very impressive. You're going 3-3 on the road against the number 8 and 3rd ranked teams in the country. I think that's laying the groundwork for maybe a potential top 25 ranking at some point for Michigan State. Fingers crossed, though. Parker Pico, he had 8 RBIs in Game 2 of this Michigan State-Louisville series en route to a 13-4 win for the Spartans. And you may be thinking, wow, 8 RBIs. That's probably the most any player had this week. Because Baylor's Tace Armstrong, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, but you're about to be. or it's Tice Armstrong, excuse me, not Tace. He hit 3 grand slams in one game. 12 RBIs, 3 grand slams in one game. I've never even heard of that happening before at any level of baseball. So that is just extremely impressive. Definitely keep an eye on that kid going forward, because if you're hitting 3 grand slams in one game, that's going to turn some heads. So you may be seeing him in the majors and the minors very soon, because it looks like that kid's got some serious power and one hell of a bat. The final headline I'm going to get into real quick in college baseball, because like I said, this is just going to be a really short segment, a couple of headlines I like. The defending champion LSU Tigers took down Coastal Carolina and Omaha last year to win the College Baseball World Series. They are still ranked at number 1 in the country, and I think that's a good ranking. They're clearly, I think, the college baseball powerhouse right now. It's tough to really say definitively that there's any other team in college baseball that is better than LSU. And something fun that happened while I was watching LSU baseball, that is, the second I saw it, I knew I had to talk about it, was their 300-pound first baseman, Zach York, stole second base. 300 pounds, stole second base. That's like an offensive lineman stealing second base. Like, that was just absolutely incredible. And he did it with, I almost just want to say, like, relative ease. Like, he got in there. So my prediction that I want to make because of that is that our big boy Zach York is going to end up with at least 5 stolen bases this year. Give me 5 stolen bases for Zach York. I want to see it happen. I want to see the big fella swipe more bags. And I hope his coaching staff saw the wheels that he displayed earlier this week and allow him to, ball in the dirt, skids away from the catcher. Let the guy take off. Let the guy try to extend his bag. Not extend his bag. Allow him to progress on the base pass. So I'd say don't give him the green light for everything, but I'd like to maybe see them utilize him, because he's a good bat. He's going to be getting on base a lot. I assume he's going to have a very high on-base percentage this season. So I'd like to see the LSU coaching staff allow him a little more freedom to maybe steal some more bags. Even if he is 300 pounds. Like, let him run a little bit. That's exciting to see. At least I know I want to see that. And, yeah, I'm going to predict that he gets 5 stolen bases this year. So with that being said, we're going to move on to our 4th topic of the day, which is the A.B.S. challenge system. Like I said, this is the automatic ball strike system that is going to be implemented in college baseball this year. So if you are not familiar, what exactly it is say you're the batter, pitcher throws a ball that you think is way above the zone, but the umpire calls it a strike. You're able to step out of the box, tap your helmet, and challenge the pitch. So say it goes to the umpires, they're going to look at it in New York, they'll show it up on the screen too, so it'll be blatantly obvious to everyone in the stadium where the pitch was. If you're right, and that pitch that you thought was a ball is really a ball, you retain your challenge, and you continue to have 2. And if you're wrong, and it turns out that that pitch was actually a strike, and you just don't have the batter's eye that you thought you did, then you lose that challenge. So how the gaining and losing challenges work is each team has 2 challenges a game. And like I said, if you're right, you keep it. If you're wrong, you lose it. So you could challenge 85 pitches in a game. And if you're right about every single one of them, like, you just continue to have 2 challenges. Like, that's how this system is going to be able to work. But the second you're wrong once, you lose that challenge, and you can't get challenges back until extra innings. The MLB is going to award extra challenges. I believe it's 1 challenge per team every extra inning. So that's going to be the only way you're going to be able to get challenges back. And a couple little niche rules about this that I wanted to point out. Challenges are not going to be able to be used while position players pitching. I don't think that's that big of a rule, but still important to point out that, say, like, the Cubs got Pete Crow Armstrong on the mound because the Pirates are beating them by 15 runs, which is probably going to happen a couple times this year. Then the Pirates won't be able to challenge pitches because the center fielder is on the mound, for an example. There's also not going to be A.B.S. if the technology malfunctions. So say, once again, Pirates are playing the Cubs at Wrigley. Wrigley's system goes down, there's just going to be no A.B.S. for the rest of the game. It's just going to be out, which isn't that big of a deal because then we just go back to the brand of baseball that we've known for over 150 years. So it's not that big of a deal, but I feel like it is important to note that they're not going to pause the game and try to fix the A.B.S. Like if A.B.S. goes out, then it's just, all right, we don't have it anymore this game. And then, I already touched on the each one and each extra inning. So those are all the little rule things. But now I want to get to some quotes that some players have had, or not necessarily quotes, but just ideologies some players have shared in this early spring training about A.B.S. I'm going to start with Chris Sale, who said that he was never going to challenge a pitch. That he would never challenge a pitch because that is the umpire's job. It's not his. And I think that's a really kind of like stupid, bigoted mindset to have as a pitcher going into this. I mean, it's not like Chris Sale has never been upset with a call an umpire has made before. Like, he has the tools at his disposal now to where if he throws a pitch that he think is in the zone, but the umpire misses the call, then he can just tap his hat and say, I want to challenge that. And I'm not saying you should, like, be gung-ho to challenge every pitch that you think the umpire gets wrong. I'm definitely not saying that. But to already have your mind made up in the spring that you're never going to challenge a pitch, I think is just very stupid, and I think it's something that's going to end up biting Chris Sale and the Braves in the ass. Because I guarantee you there's a scenario somewhere down the line in this Braves season where Chris Sale throws a pitch and he doesn't like what the call is, and he could challenge it, but he's not going to, and it's going to end up costing the Braves. I don't know when it'll happen, I don't know why it'll happen, or who it'll happen against. But I believe, given that he has this mindset, what goes around comes around, and it's going to bite him in the ass. Because just having your mind made up like that already, I just think is so stupid. Like it's so stupid. I mean, in a day and age where people are chewing out umpires all the time because they are consistently just making terrible game-changing calls, the fact that you're going to sit there and say, I'll never challenge a pitch because that's the umpire's job, I think is a bad mindset to have. Now, on the flip side of that, maybe this guy actually kind of agrees with Sale, because Vinny Pasquantino, I think he said this somewhat jokingly. Like, I think there was a little bit of humor in his statement, but I still believe parts of it were grounded in truth and lead into a conversation that needs to be had. He said that pitchers shouldn't be challenging pitches because they don't know the strike zone like hitters do, which I think is... Maybe the way he said it isn't entirely valid, but I think there is some truth in that statement. I mean, if you are the pitcher, maybe you have to think a sec before you do challenge a pitch because you are 60 feet away from the plate. Granted, I know these guys are professional pitchers and have probably been pitching since they were kids and know the strike zone inside and out. I'm not trying to say in any way whatsoever that these pitchers don't know the strike zone. But when you think about it, you should be leaving that mostly up to the catcher because he is catching the ball right in front of his face. He is inches away from the ball, and you are 60 feet. I think that is a very important thing to keep in mind, especially on the pitching side of things, and I think pitchers should be very careful when choosing what pitches they challenge. Because, and I know this may sound a little contradictory to what I just said about Chris Sale, but I think there's a fine line between wanting to never challenge a pitch ever and knowing when you should be leaving it up to your catcher. Like, I don't think pitchers should be pulling the trigger on challenging that often. I think on the defensive side of things, it should be the catcher 90% of the time. I think sometimes, like, even if the catcher thinks you missed, you probably missed. Because, like I said, he is much closer to the plate than the pitcher. But pitchers know their pitches, so if you throw something in there, catcher doesn't look like he's going to challenge, but you have that gut feeling, pull the trigger every once in a while. But, like I said though, be careful because you are much farther away from the zone than the catcher and the umpire. So, with that being said, I want to talk about the final thing I have to say about the A.B.S. challenge system, which actually affects us fans, believe it or not, pretty heavily. The K-Zone is going to be disappearing from the broadcasts. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what the K-Zone is, it's just a little box that goes up on the screen whenever you're watching the game. And then they'll have the pitches show up at dots. And, if it's in that box, it probably was a strike. Outside of that box was probably a ball. Fans all across baseball have grown extremely used to this. It's on every game you watch all year round. But it's being taken away now. And this quote that I want to read about the A.B.S. zone being taken away was posted on February 15th by the North Shore 9 on Facebook. It says, and I quote, with the automated ball strike challenge system coming in 2026, MLB has decided it's changing the on-screen K-zone from in-park and at-home broadcast to no longer indicate if it's a strike or a ball. The reasoning is so there is an abundance of caution that it cannot be exploited by teams to know when to challenge a pitch. I think this is very stupid on behalf of the MLB, and it's just a big oversight into what the actual problem is. I mean, there are definitely graphics teams within the MLB that are going to be able to just digitally put a box on their feed that they have in the game, the same way they have their replay team. They're just going to be able to go and digitally put a box up on the up over home plate to have a better idea of what they think is a strike or a ball. Now, why does that mean that us at home can't see that? I understand, maybe does this have an effect because of the recent gambling scandals with Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase? I don't think so. But now I also just don't know why, why are we taking this away from the fans when it really isn't going to have the effect that you think it will? I mean, think about how fast those players have to challenge pitches. You think Timmy at home in Jersey watching the Yankees and just being able to see what's a ball and what's a strike is going to affect on whether or not Aaron Judge taps his helmet within a 3-second window that he has in order to challenge it? I mean, I get where they were coming from, but just given how fast players are going to have to challenge pitches after they're thrown in order for it to be valid, and compounded with the fact that all these replay officials that each team has and the graphics teams that all these teams have are going to be able to just go digitally put a box onto the screen to indicate to them what's a ball or a strike. I just think there's absolutely no reason to take that away from the fans. Now, are we still going to see where the pitches are thrown? Are we still going to see the dot and the miles per hour pop up on each pitch? Yes, I assume that's still going to be there. But I don't like the fact that they're taking the box away. Not because I can't tell what's a strike and what's a ball when watching the game. I've watched enough baseball to have a pretty decent idea of what's what. But I think it just takes away something from the fans. I like having something to yell at the umpire about if he's wrong. I like being able to know if my guy swung at a pitch that he should have, or if my pitcher just barely missed a spot. Even though that box isn't totally accurate, I think just the way it helps you perceive the game of baseball, it's a good thing to have on the screen. And what my hopes are is that maybe around the All-Star break or maybe it'll even take till next season, but after the MLB has seen this in action, I think hopefully they'll realize that the at-home broadcasts are able to have the K-zone on the screen, and it's really not as big of a deal as they think it is. But for now, that's just wishful thinking. I hope that happens because, like I said, I don't think there's any real reason to have the K-zone off the broadcast. I don't think it gives any teams competitive advantages. I just think it hurts fans. So that's all I have to say about the A.B.S. system. I'm very much so looking forward to seeing it in action next year. And now we are going to move into the Olympic hockey medal games and just kind of the tournament as a whole, because the Olympics are fun. The Olympics are so much fun every year. I mean, I said this a little bit last week when I was talking about the WBC and just the kind of intensity and passion you see from guys whenever they're competing for their country. We saw that throughout the entire Olympics, and especially in hockey with the familiar faces we know in the NHL. I mean, it was just a fantastic tournament. Never seemed like there was a dull moment once we got to elimination play. It was must-see TV. Some of my favorite moments from the tournament that aren't the medal games, because I think it was very clear that the gold medal game between the U.S. and Canada for both men's and women's hockey were the two most exciting parts of the tournament. But before that, both of these were in the quarterfinals. Quinn Hughes' overtime winner against Sweden. I thought that was an absolutely electrifying moment. And the same thing for Mitch Marner's overtime winner for Canada against Czechia. I thought that was also such an electrifying moment because we definitely got our fair share of overtime winners this tournament, which I thought I just felt spoiled the whole time because, in my opinion, there's nothing better in sports than sudden death, next goal wins hockey. I mean, the anticipation, the excitement, the tenseness that you feel watching it. You're on the edge of the seat. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, even if you don't have a horse in the race. It's just fantastic sports. So, for the bronze and the gold medal game for the women, I'll touch on those real quick. The bronze game, it was Switzerland against Sweden. Switzerland took down Sweden 2-1. Alina Muller, her 4th goal of the tournament, was an overtime winner that led them to that final score of 2-1, which a final score of 2-1 is kind of a theme here in these gold medal games, all but one. And then in the gold game, USA versus Canada, the United States won the game by a score of 2-1. Megan Keller, her 3rd goal of the tournament, overtime winner. And this morning, we got some exciting hockey. I woke up probably about like midway through the 3rd period because I forgot, but I did watch the end of the game. I was able to see Jack Hughes' 4th goal get into the back of the net to win the gold for the USA in overtime by a score of 2-1, if that wasn't made abundantly clear already. But that was such a fun game. I was rooting for the USA the whole time. It was electrifying to watch. I do think, and this is just as a Penguins fan, I do think it's really unfortunate that Sidney Crosby wasn't able to play down the stretch for Canada. I mean, losing your captain hurts. I'm obviously excited the USA won, but I did still want to see my favorite player play on the world stage. So it was unfortunate that he wasn't able to get in on that action for entertainment purposes, but hopefully that just means he's getting healthy and he's going to be able to suit up for Pittsburgh ASAP when we get into the regular season, because that team is pushing for the playoffs. However, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent on Crosby, but that gold medal game was so fun. I'm happy the USA won. Matthew Tkachuk just absolutely owns Connor McDavid, has won 2 Stanley Cup finals against him in each of the last 2 years, and now took the gold over him when he got the silver. I mean, 4 nations aside, Tkachuk just owns McDavid, and I feel like that's important to say, because he may be the best player in the world right now, Connor McDavid, but Matthew Tkachuk has just got his number, which I think that is just absolutely hilarious. And then finally, the bronze game for the men's. Not too much to write home about. Finland absolutely beat the brakes off of Slovakia, which is, in my previous episode that I had, that I recorded before these games had happened, I had made my prediction that Finland was going to win, so I was right about that. But I didn't expect it to be a 6-goal rout. They absolutely beat the brakes off them right from the get-go. Sebastian Aho put them up 1-0, and they just never looked back after that. So I'm excited it happened. I'm sad that it's over. Olympic hockey is always a treat, but now, coming up, like I said, we get more people playing for their country in the World Baseball Classic. So if you love rooting for the USA, you still get to. We still got the World Baseball Classic coming up. So you're going to get your fix. Don't worry. Whew, that was a lot about the Olympics. Not as much as I thought, but the Olympics were fun. The Olympics were definitely fun, and I'm happy I was able to still talk about it in a timely manner despite my audio going bad last time. So now that means we're going to move into bracketology. I'm excited for this segment. So, as I said previously, this is going off of what Lenardi had posted. These are his bracket projections. This took place before Arizona beat Houston this week and Duke beat Michigan. So there's obviously going to be some things that most likely changed in the seedings that if I were to be doing this in today's bracket or whatever Lenardi will make for Monday after the new AP poll rankings come out. Because a lot of teams have probably gone up, a lot of teams have probably dropped, but as of the start of this week, this is what Lenardi had, so I'm going to break it down for you. Starting off with the Midwest. Number 1 overall seed in the tournament at this point is Michigan. I bet you that'll be Duke now, but I'll refrain from saying what I think things will be now. Just, screw Michigan. Sorry. But, all right. Michigan, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, going up against the winner of Howard and NJIT. Then in the 8-9 matchup, you got NC State and St. Mary's. Your 5-12 matchup is going to be Louisville and Liberty. 4-13, you got Vanderbilt and Hawaii. Then your 6-11 is going to be the winner of Tennessee, it's going to be Tennessee against the winner of Mick Cronin's UCLA and San Diego State. Then you got Gonzaga and A.B.S. in the 3-14 spot. Then St. Louis and SMU, Southern Methodist University, going at it in the 7-10. And finally, the 2-15 matchup is going to be Iowa State and ETSU. So, looking at that bracket, right now, I think my favorite matchup in that is going to be Tennessee versus the winner of UCLA and San Diego State. I believe UCLA wins that first game, if nothing else for the fact that I believe that teams who create good storylines are going to win games in March Madness, and I think all eyes are on Mick Cronin right now, especially after ejecting his own player against Michigan State this week. So I'm looking at that Tennessee versus what I believe is going to be UCLA matchup. I think it's going to be Tennessee, UCLA. I think it's going to be a very good matchup. I think a lot of people are going to have UCLA written off because of the antics of their coach, and I think a lot of people aren't going to expect that it'll actually be a little bit closer of a game. I still think Tennessee will take it home, but I think UCLA is going to give them a bit of a run for their money. I think they're going to keep it close, but I'll still like Tennessee to win that game. My underdog that can go on and win a couple of games, even though they've had some poor losses this year, I'd probably say St. Louis. They're coming out of the 7 seed. I think they easily beat SMU in the first round. It'll be a task to beat Iowa State for sure. But Iowa State isn't – they're a 2 seed right now, but I don't think they're an extreme powerhouse. I mean, they're a great team, but I think they're beatable. I think they definitely have ways that they've shown that they can be beaten. They've shown their weaknesses. So I think St. Louis does have a good opportunity to potentially beat them as well and make it into the Sweet 16. So for the Midwest, underdog is St. Louis. My favorite matchup is Tennessee and UCLA. And my team that I'm looking at on upset watch is Gonzaga. And this is solely based off the fact that they dropped a game to Portland this year. I mean, they've already shown that they can lose to a team that they should absolutely pummel. And now, I'm not saying C.A. Baptist is some great team, but when March comes, madness comes as well. So, if Gonzaga has already shown that they can lose to poor teams, regardless of who you put them up against, as long as they're a top 3 seed facing someone poor, I'm going to be looking at that game and not expecting Gonzaga to lose in the first round, but I'm definitely going to be watching it, and I'm not going to be surprised if they do, given how we've seen them play some teams in the past. So that's what I got for the Midwest region. Now moving on over to the East region. We got who I now think will be the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. The Duke Blue Devils at the 1 seed going up against the 16-seeded UT Martin. Then we got the 8-9 matchup of Iowa and Texas. 5-12, Rick Pitino's St. John's versus SF Austin. Love seeing SF Austin in the tournament. Great tournament team. Then we got the 4-13 matchup, Alabama and High Point. Then 6-11, North Carolina and the winner of TCU and Santa Clara. 3-14, we got Kansas and Portland State. 7-10, Clemson and UCF. And then the 2-15 is Illinois and Merrimack. For the East region, my underdog that I like to go on and win a handful of games, I even think this team could legitimately make the Elite Eight, is the North Carolina Tar Heels. I mean, I think regardless, if you put TCU or Santa Clara in front of them, regardless, I think they win. Kansas probably wins that game against Portland State. Give me North Carolina to take down Kansas in that game. And I think they take down Illinois too. Like, if their run is that 11 seed, Kansas and Illinois, I think North Carolina can win all 3 of those games. Now, I'm grounding most of that belief in the fact that they beat Duke. Yes, it's a rival at home, so it's kind of all bets are off when you're playing your rival. But they've shown more than some other higher-seeded teams on this list that they can go out and beat high-caliber basketball teams. So because of that, I'm definitely going to be watching North Carolina very closely if that's how the East region shakes out. My favorite matchup, the 8-9, Iowa-Texas. I think this matchup doesn't have, or this region doesn't have a ton of matchups that really catch my eye, so I just kind of went with the 8-9 here. You know, really big SEC school, really big Big Ten school, going at it, closely seeded teams. I think it'll just make for an entertaining basketball game, because also it's always nice when the Big Ten takes down the SEC. I always love to see that. So I'll be pulling for Iowa, but I think that'll be a very entertaining and competitive matchup. And then my upset team in the East is the Alabama Crimson Tide. I just think with all the drama they've had with their G League player this year, that it's kind of setting them up for an early tournament exit, just because of how they, honestly, I'm going to say it, because of how they cheated college basketball, how they cheated the game of college basketball by bringing back a G League player. I think that's going to bite them in the ass. Does it bite them in the ass in the first round against High Point? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen in the first round, but I definitely don't see them making the Sweet 16. I don't even care if they're a 3 or a 2 seed, who they're facing. But especially at a 4 seed, I don't think they make the Sweet 16. And I can honestly, High Point was a very popular pick last year to move out of the first round. So maybe this is the year High Point gets it done. But I could see Alabama getting knocked out in the first round, 100%. Now transitioning into the South region. This is probably my favorite region of the 4 right now, so I'm excited to talk about this one. The number 1 overall seed in this region is the UConn Huskies. They'll face the winner of the 16 seed matchup, Appalachian State and BCU. Then in 8-9, we got Auburn and Indiana, which would probably be a much more exciting football game as compared to this basketball game. But, I'll still watch. Going to watch every game in March. The 5-12 is going to be Virginia and USF, South Florida. Then we got the 4 and the 13, Nebraska and Yale. Then we got 6-seeded BYU going up against 11th-seeded Miami, Ohio. And then we got 3-seed Florida going up against 14-seed Austin Peay. And then the 7-10 matchup, we're getting Wisconsin at the 7th seed, Texas A&M at the 10 seed. And then rounding it out, we got the 2-15 matchup of Houston and Wright State. So I'm going to go through my underdog real quick that I think can go on a serious run, because I kind of have 2 underdogs in this region that I think can go on serious runs, but I think one is much more primed for it than the other, and that first underdog team is Wisconsin. With the way Wisconsin is just able to turn on their ability to shoot lights out, I mean, they beat Michigan, which is definitely not easy. Only other team that has done that is Duke. Wisconsin's ability to just shoot at a highly consistent clip, I think, is going to serve them very well in March, regardless of who you put in front of them. Like, I think they easily win this first game against Texas A&M, and then I could see them beating Houston too. I mean, I know, and I'll say this again, spoiler alert, about the next 7 seed in the West that I also like to go on and win a couple games. But I just think 2 seeds every year are very susceptible to losing in the second round. I feel like every year we see the winner of the 7-10 get written off, but then they go out and play that 2 seed, and it is much, much closer of a game than everyone thinks. I mean, last year, how many people seriously thought that John Calipari's Arkansas Razorbacks were going to take down the 2-seeded St. John's team that Rick Pitino was coaching? A lot of people thought that was St. John's through and through, and then boom, Arkansas comes out, surprises everybody. So I think we're definitely going to see one of those this year. I've thrown around a couple different 7 seeds that can do it, and I will be doing so again later. But if Wisconsin makes it past Houston, I don't know who can stop them, because their ability to shoot is just so good. And obviously there are going to be teams that can stop them, but in terms of getting to the Elite 8, like, I think Wisconsin is a team, much like North Carolina, that I think has a good draw on this spot and that I could see moving on to the Elite 8. Now, my favorite matchup that is also my upset pick for this round is BYU and Miami, Ohio. I think that matchup's going to be so fun. I think all eyes are going to be on the Red Hawks in that game, because as of now, I'm going to double check this just to be sure. They're still undefeated. Yeah, they're still 27-0. No one has beat the Red Hawks yet. So even though you're a small MAC school, when you're going into the tournament and you as players and coaches know no one has beaten us, then you're going to have that mindset going into the March tournament that no one can beat you. I mean, at this point, the Miami, Ohio Red Hawks are unbeatable. So if you have that mindset and you are playing like you are a number 1 overall seed who hasn't lost a game this year, even though you're going to be probably an 11 or 10 seed coming out of the MAC, just having that mindset and that unwavering belief that you can go out and beat anybody is dangerous, in my opinion. Now, are they going to go on a suit? Like, they would probably run into Wisconsin. Like, in this scenario, I would not be surprised at all if we get a Sweet 16 matchup of Miami, Ohio, and Wisconsin. As crazy as it sounds, I know Miami, Ohio would have to beat Florida, that would be tough. That would be really tough. I don't know if they do go out and beat Florida, who's trying to go on a title defense run. But I could see Miami, Ohio making some noise. If not in the second round, going into the Sweet 16 and farther, I think they definitely beat BYU in the first round because I just don't see them not losing a regular season game and then coming out into the tournament and losing their first. So that's going to be my favorite matchup to watch in the first round of the South region. And I'm looking to see Miami, Ohio. At this point, it says BYU, but I'm looking at Miami, Ohio to upset anyone they put in front of them. So hopefully that's not Michigan State, because if Michigan State has to play Miami, Ohio in the first round, I'm gonna be so upset. But I digress now, and I move on to the West region. The number 1 seed in this region is the Arizona Wildcats going up against 16-seeded Long Island. Our 8-9 matchup, Utah State and Miami. 5-12, we got the aforementioned John Calipari Arkansas Razorbacks going up against 12-seeded Belmont. We got my 4-seeded Michigan State Spartans going up against 13-seeded UNC Wilmington. And then we got 6-seeded Kentucky and 11-seeded USC in that matchup. Our 3-14 is Texas Tech and North Dakota State. 7-10 Villanova, Georgia. And rounding it out, final matchup here, the 2-seeded Purdue Boilermakers versus the number 15-seeded Navy Shipmen. My underdog here to go on a little bit of a run is Villanova. I just don't think Purdue is all that great, to be totally honest with you. So I think they're a very beatable team. I think they'll wipe the floor with Navy. I'm not saying Purdue's going to go out in the first round, but I do think that Villanova is going to win their first round game against Georgia, and I can honestly see them going on and beating Purdue. Now, will they go on and beat most likely either Texas Tech, Kentucky, or USC in the Sweet 16? Maybe. It's going to depend on their draw, and they'll need some shots to go their way. But I definitely like Villanova to make it into the Sweet 16 because I think Purdue is a very beatable, overrated team. Now, my upset pick here in the first round, and I have a buddy who roots for this team very heavily, so he's not going to love this, but I could see the Kentucky Wildcats going down in the first round again against the USC Trojans. That's just kind of been the thing Kentucky has done in the tournament in recent years. They've just been losing to teams who are worse than them in the first round, and they've done it more consistently as higher-seeded teams. Like, 6 is the lowest I've seen Kentucky in a little bit. But, I mean, everyone remembers a couple years ago when they were the 3 seed, Oakland was the 14 seed, and Oakland just absolutely beat the brakes off of Kentucky. Like, it just wasn't even, like, no one expected that. So, until I see a change in how the Kentucky Wildcats play basketball in March, they're going to be my upset pick in this region. And this is also going to be my favorite game because if USC and Kentucky do play, I don't think it's going to be an Oakland situation where USC just comes out, has a miracle game, and just beats the brakes off of Kentucky. I don't see that happening whatsoever. I think it's going to be a competitive game no matter which way you cut it, and I'm going to be very excited to watch that game if it happens. So that is the bracket as of now. The last 4 in, according to Lenardi, are UCLA, Santa Clara, TCU, and San Diego State. His first 4 out are Missouri, Ohio State, New Mexico, and Cal. I know the bracket will probably change a lot. There's going to be a lot of teams who win and lose over this next month as we get closer to the tournament. I mean, 1 month from today, we're going to be on the second day of the second round. So we are getting really close to conference tournament play and March Madness. It's so exciting. We're getting to such a fun time of the year for sports. I can't wait. But obviously, a lot of these things will change a lot. Most of these matchups probably won't even exist come Selection Sunday when the final bracket gets revealed. But I still wanted to touch on it, give you some takes, and see like if this is how the bracket shakes out to be similar to this, well, now you know how I feel about it. But I will be doing bracketology probably just one more time before we actually get to Selection Sunday. And then on Selection Sunday, I'll show you what my bracket is and actually fill it out all the way. So before then, I'll do one more predicted bracketology segment. And then by time after that, we're just going to be in the madness, baby. And I'm excited for it. I don't know about y'all, but I am very excited for it. Something I don't know if anyone is excited to do is watch the Chicago Bulls play basketball, because they're in a mess right now. This is State of the Union. Chicago Bulls, you are being put on blast. What the hell? What the hell are the Bulls doing? I have some thoughts on it, but I'm not too sure because I'm not the most avid Bulls watcher. So Chicago fans out there, I know some of you are watching. Let me know down below, what do you think's happening with the Bulls? Because I can't quite make sense of it, but I'm going to give you some numbers right here and try to. So, if you are unfamiliar with the Chicago Bulls and the current state of their team, they are losers of their last 8 consecutive games and have lost 11 of their last 12. Over that 8-game losing streak, they're losing by an average of 17.9 points when you round up. Basically, you can call it 18. They're losing by an average of 18 points over their last 8 games. That is so bad. Like, that is hilariously bad. I'm sorry to Bulls fans out there, but that's terrible. And this wouldn't be as bad if you weren't a team that, before this 12-game stretch of horrificness, you were on a 4-game win streak, and you were a game over 500. You were in the play-in. So what happened? I mean, over this stretch, you've lost half of these last 4 games by 16 points exactly, which I thought was a fun little tidbit, including a 3-game stretch where you lost 3 in a row, and last night to the Pistons, where you lost by 16, and last night to the Pistons, where you lost by 16. Now, it's about 7 p.m. right now, so I believe the Bulls play the Knicks in about an hour. If I was a betting man, which I am, I'd be taking the Knicks to win by exactly 16 points, because Chicago just loves to lose by 16 points right now. But it's a problem, because they're not just losing and just having some shots not fall their way. Like, they're getting consistently blown out. And I guarantee you that 8-game losing streak extends to 9 tonight. And, I mean, they made 7 trades at the deadline. They have not won a game since the deadline. And their moves, they acquired Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, Jaden Ivey, and Anthony Simons, while parting ways with Ayo Dosunmu, who in their last win was the team leader in points, rebounds, and assists in that game. And they also parted ways with Kobe White and Nikola Vucevic. Like, that just looks like a team who was solid and then just decided to get worse at the deadline on purpose. Now, if Chicago goes on more of a win streak, are they keeping those players instead of trading them away because their play-in spot kind of, and their playoff hopes just kind of vanished out of thin air, at least as of February 22nd, in my opinion? Maybe you're keeping Vooch and Ayo and Kobe White if you're not on this terrible losing streak. But you are, so we have to talk about the current state of things, not the what-ifs. I don't know if this is just tanking, incompetence, or everything going wrong for Chicago in terms of luck. It's probably them not just being unlucky. I think it's either incompetence by the front office or tanking. And in my opinion, I think this might be a bit of a stretch, but imagine this is like the smartest under the radar tanking strategy ever. All right, hear me out. So if you traded away all your good players, or at least 3 of your better players, in my opinion, for a lot of players who come in and are just not as good. Not necessarily bad players, but just players who aren't as good as the ones you have. So you're trotting those players out every night. You're playing them, but it's just a bad roster. So even if it looks like you're trying to win, by the moves you made at the deadline and clearly with how you've been playing recently, it's kind of like you're under the radar tanking. I mean, you don't have to sit your best players because you got rid of who your best players were. Now you can just slowly watch your record get worse and worse and worse, and your lottery odds get better and better and better, but just kind of under the nose of Adam Silver. I mean, it's not like you're the Jazz sitting Jaren Jackson Jr. and Lauri Markkanen and making it obvious. I mean, you're just playing. I mean, you're playing a lot of small ball because it feels like 90% of the Bulls roster is just guards at this point. But it kind of feels like it's a weird workaround to avoid a tanking penalty in a way, which would definitely mean it's not incompetence, because that'd be like damn near 4D chess if you're trying to find that intricate of a way to tank. And I know you can just call it a rebuild, but given that they were in a playoff spot in a game over 500, that doesn't feel like the time to say like, yeah, we need to rebuild. It feels like the wheels came off a little bit and you're just like, all right, we're going to blow it up and try to get the number 1 pick, but do it under the radar. So in that terms, maybe it's kind of a smart thing the Bulls are doing, but like I said, I'm not the most avid Bulls watcher. I know some of you out there do enjoy watching Bulls basketball despite how bad they may be. So let me know down below if you think that's accurate, if you think I'm a little off the mark on some of my opinions there, but that's how I feel about the current state of the Bulls. They are bad. They're going to lose by 16 tonight to the Knicks, and they just need to figure some stuff out because, man, they went from sugar to shit real quick. And I just marvel at. Like, I've never quite seen a mid-season collapse like that, I feel like, at least in recent years. 1 game over 500, you trade all your good players away, and now you're on an 8-game losing streak, losing by an average of 18 points a night. Like, it's just, the 180 that the Bulls took is honestly just kind of impressive. But I'll stop hating on the Bulls. I'll end that State of the Union there. That's all I have to say. If you have a team that you root for that you want to see me put on State of the Union, even if it's an MLB team, because I'm going to start talking about the MLB more now that we're in spring training, like I said, put it down in the comments. I will read it, and I will do it. So moving on now, our final 2 subjects before we get into the top 10. This first one is Tyreek Hill. As I said at the top, he just got released by the Dolphins earlier this week. I believe it was on Monday. And I think that was a good move for the Dolphins. I like that they got rid of him. I think it was just time for him to go. I think it's time for Miami to blow up what they got, start over, rebuild. I think they should trade Jaden Waddle away as well. But that's not what this is about. This is about Tyreek Hill and 4 landing spots I like for him. So I'm going to go 4, 3, 2, 1 in terms of what I want to see and just how good I think he would make each of those teams. So my 4th team, unsurprisingly, you knew I wasn't going to get through an entire episode without talking about them. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I said last week, I bitched and moaned about how I thought they needed a wide receiver too, and now one basically just fell out of the sky into free agency. I mean, the only reason I don't know how good of a move this would be is because I know him and DK Metcalf would butt heads all the time. Like, they are 2 number 1 guys who want the ball consistently. So I don't know in terms of chemistry how well that'll mesh, because I think the last thing any Steeler fan wants right now is more locker room drama. Because for the better part of the last decade, we've had so much locker room drama to where that's making more headlines as compared to what the actual football team is doing. So I definitely do not want to see Tyreek Hill on the Steelers if it will become a locker room problem. But if him and DK are able to get along, then by all means, I would love to see him in the Berg. That would be a great compliment to DK Metcalf. Put any quarterback back there. I don't care who it is. Hell, throw Max Brosmer back there. I don't care. That's a good receiving. That's a start of a really good receiving core. And especially with Pat Freiermuth as your tight end, I think that's a really good start to the receiving team. My number 3 team that I'd like to see Tyreek Hill go to, the AFC runner-ups, the Denver Broncos. Cortland Sutton's a great wide receiver. Wide receiver 1 on that team, deservedly so. But he's not one of those like marquee wide receiver 1s that you think of when you think of wide receiver 1s around the league. So if you're talking about a team with a fantastic defense that would have made the Super Bowl had their starting quarterback not been hurt, like, I wholeheartedly believe that. Bo Nix would have beaten the brakes off the Patriots. But if you add Tyreek Hill to that team, I mean, it's hard to say you're going to jump up to the next level after being the 1 seed and winning 14 games and almost making the Super Bowl when your backup quarterback was the reason you didn't make it, not the rest of your offense. But once again, if he's not a locker room problem, I could see Tyreek Hill taking the Broncos to like unheard of territory. Like with that defense, like Tyreek Hill would have so much fun in Mile High Stadium catching deep balls from Bo Nix. I already know. Pair him with Cortland Sutton, you free up more room for Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims and the rest of the receiving team. I think Tyreek Hill would be a fantastic move for the Broncos. You give Bo Nix another fun target to throw to. That defense isn't going anywhere. You're still going to be giving up no points, and now you're going to be scoring even more points. Like, if you get Tyreek Hill on the Broncos, that I guarantee you they repeat as the AFC's #1 seed. Now moving in over to the other conference here in the NFL, my second team that I want to see him go to is the New York Giants. I think if you put him across from Malik Neighbors with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatabo on that offense, and especially under new head coach John Harbaugh, I think now you're finally starting to take that first step to the Giants becoming an organization that's taken seriously again. I know they made the playoffs with Jones and Barkley not too long ago, but even then, it's not like they were like some powerhouse. But with Neighbors coming back off injury too, I think it would be nice for the Giants to have a guy across from him that can lighten the load for him a little bit as he works back into this NFL season, so he doesn't have to carry the wide receiver 1 weight on his shoulders. I would like to see that. I think that would be beneficial for the Giants. It would give Tyreek Hill another wide receiver 1 spot, even though Malik Neighbors is younger and definitely has more potential. I think allowing him to learn under Tyreek Hill and move into that 2 spot would be very good. Because if I'm Tyreek Hill, I'm looking at a defense that's almost got it totally figured out. I mean, if Abdul Carter can just get his head out of his ass, then he'll be a much, much better player on that defense. They got Dexter Lawrence on the D-line. They're so close on the defensive side of things to having like a legit solid defense, in my opinion. And now you add Tyreek Hill on offense. Like, I'm looking at that and I'm like, you guys are close. Like, I can help this team go to the next level. Because when you're looking around the rest of that division too, I think the NFC East is wide open next year. And the Giants adding Tyreek Hill actually might make them, not the favorite by any means, but because they definitely wouldn't have the most talent on their roster as compared to other teams. But I could see them be like a Jacksonville or a New England that we've seen go a 4-win season before, absolutely terrible, that gets a new head coach, and then boom, all of a sudden you're making the Super Bowl, you're in the playoffs. Like, I could see the Giants go on that type of trajectory this year. Obviously, they have some more things they need to figure out, but I could see that on the horizon. And finally, the #1 team, building suspense, the #1 team that I want to see Tyreek Hill go to, and no, it's not just because I poo-pooed all over their basketball team for 15 minutes. It's the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears have good wide receivers. They have a great quarterback in Caleb Williams. I mean, you got Rome Odunze. You got, I know these are tight ends, but you got Colston Loveland. You got Cole Kmet. You got, who's the, DJ Moore. That's the other guy I'm thinking of. You have a good, solid receiving core. You won the division. You got #2 in the NFC last year. But you add Tyreek Hill as your wide receiver 1 to catch some passes from Caleb Williams. Like, you got good wide receivers, but if you put any wide receiver on the Bears on any other team, you're not going to say that's their new, for most teams, they're not going to be a new wide receiver 1. Like, they're like a lot of good wide receiver 2s that I think if you put Tyreek Hill in that team to be the 1 guy and take some pressure off of Odunze and Moore, then you're just going to create an even better offense. And I think if Tyreek Hill is on this year's Bears team, I think they beat the Rams in the NFC divisional game, and I don't think they beat Seattle at Seattle to win the NFC, but I think they give Seattle a run for their money and make it a fairly close game in the NFC Championship. So I'd like to see Tyreek Hill go to the Bears more than anything. I think that would be a fantastic fit for him. I think that would make the Bears a crazy threat in the NFC. I think that would make them top 5 Super Bowl favorite if they landed Tyreek Hill, but that's all I have to say about him. Those were 4 teams that I like him to go to. Steelers, Broncos, Giants, Bears. I think all 4 of those are really good fits. And now we're going to get into our 9th subject, rounding out our order. Floyd Mayweather is fighting Mike Tyson. That's a real fight. This isn't going to be a super long topic. This is going to be fairly quick, but I still have a couple things I just need to say about this because the second I saw this headline, I knew that I had to talk about it. So, first off, and I know the answer to this question is money. Like, I'm not stupid. But, like, why is this fight happening outside of you guys getting paid? I mean, can we all be real with each other here for a second? No one wants to see this. No one wants to see this. No one wants to see two aging has-been boxers past their prime going at it. Because not only is that damaging your reputations as boxers, making you guys look like you're just in it for the money, like, it's damaging your reputation and it's making the sport of boxing look like a joke. Like, I am a boxing fan. I've been a boxing fan for a really long time. Like, I like the UFC. I do, but there's just something about boxing that I've always loved more. The traditionalism of it, the fact that it's just your two hands, like it's just put them up, two hands, gloves. I've loved that. Like the skill and the athleticism it takes to be in the UFC is definitely more entertaining, but there's just something about the simplicity of boxing I've always loved. But however, because of how exciting the UFC is right now, boxing has become its little brother. It's taken a back seat to UFC. So in an era where boxing needs to be marketed more for the legitimately good fights that are happening, now what gets pushed is going to be Floyd Mayweather versus Mike Tyson when they're just both old as hell. I mean, boxing needs to stop pushing these joke fights because now the average fan who doesn't know too much about boxing is just going to think it's these shitty hug fests. Like, I guarantee you no one gets knocked down in Floyd versus Tyson. Neither of them are getting knocked down unless, I don't know, they get winded from having to dodge too much. Like, maybe they need to take a breather. But no one's going to get hit in the face and knocked down. I guarantee you that. It's going to be a hug fest. It's going to suck. I mean, thinking about it, you're talking about two boxers who used to be some of the most feared men on the planet, and each of their most recent fights are against a Paul brother. Like, Mike Tyson fought Jake Paul. Floyd Mayweather fought Logan Paul. And now they're fighting each other. Like, they are turning the back ends of their careers into jokes. I mean, how much more money do you need? Floyd Mayweather, your nickname is money. I get you're always after it. But how much more do you need? Like, is it worth damaging your reputation this much at this stage of your career? Like, because it's not even going to go up against your record. Like, this is an exhibition match. So what motivation are either of these players going to have to win? It kind of feels like an NBA All-Star game. Like, they're just in it for money and the notoriety and the publicity they're going to get because of it. Like, the actual product is going to suck. It's going to be a hug fest. And I'm still going to watch it, obviously, because as a boxing fan, it's going to kind of feel like a hate watch. Like, I just need to see how bad this is going to be because, like, don't get me wrong. I would love to be pleasantly surprised and see those two throwing haymakers at each other, trying to knock them down, and we get one hell of a fight. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. I think it's going to be two old men who should just spend their time filing for AARP instead of getting in the ring with each other. Just giving zero effort. Like, I bet you they're not even really training for this. Like, they're probably just going to show up day up and be like, oh, I'm good, all right, we're not going to knock. Like, there's probably, like, a no knockout clause or some shit in the contract. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not looking forward to that fight. I think it's making a mockery of boxing, and I just hate the fact that it's coming from two of the most decorated fighters in the sport. I think it's a joke, and I think the WBC just needs to do a better job at pushing the actual good fights that they have going on. I mean, there are great fights. There are great boxing fights every week that no one knows about because of how poorly marketed it is. But then everyone's going to know about Floyd and Tyson because that's the one time they decide to market boxing. It's terrible. It's terrible, and I hate it. But that is officially the end of our starting nine today. A little bit of a longer one. I had a lot I wanted to say about some things. The bracketology definitely took a while, but I had fun this episode. I don't want to make them too long. Like, I don't want to take up like over 2 hours of your time, so I'm trying to keep it somewhat short, but definitely when I'm talking about brackets here in this month of March, there are definitely going to be some a little longer episodes. I'm going to try to keep them near like this hour and a half-ish mark, but we'll see. However, though, I mean, if you're still stuck around for this part, then clearly the sound of my voice hasn't driven you crazy. Yet. But now we're going to get into our top 10. Our top 10 that I picked for this week are going to be my top 10 favorite Pixar movies. I wanted to do something that was totally unrelated to sports this week, and I was racking my brain all week. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? And I finally landed on Pixar movies. So I found 11, no problem, that I wanted to have in this top 10. So I am going to have an honorable mention because I feel like these 11 are far and above the best movies that Pixar has made. Sorry, I got a little bit of a sore throat, so I'm drinking a lot of water. I think they're the best movies that Pixar has made. Easily. Without debate. I think they're the best movies Pixar has made. Without debate. So I'm going to talk about them. Starting off with our honorable mention, it's Inside Out. I think that movie's fantastic. I love that movie. It's good. It just doesn't have the nostalgia feel that I get from most of these other movies in my top 10, so I think that's why I left it out. However, I think the creativity and the story and everything about Inside Out is just so genius. I have not seen the second one yet. I intend on seeing it at some point, though, but I've heard it is pretty good. But the first Inside Out, absolute masterpiece, just falls short of being in the top 10. At number 10, we have the first Toy Story movie, the first computer-generated animated film. It's what kickstarted all of this universe for Pixar. It's a great movie. Simplistic. I think the simplicity of it is kind of what gets it all the way down at 10, because despite it being iconic and kickstarting this insanely famous franchise, it's just kind of like the story leaves some to be desired. I mean, it's a great story. I love it, but it's just, it's normal. It's Toy Story 1. It was their first time doing it, so obviously it wasn't going to be perfect. Coming in at number 9, however, is everybody's favorite French rat, Remy, in the movie Ratatouille. I love this movie. It gets me starving every time I watch it. I think the premise is amazing. I have so many memories of watching this on DVD as a kid. When Remy would go up into his hair and pull it, and he would be making all the food. I thought that was so funny, because also just the food looked so good in that movie too. All of it looked so good. I mean, I'm a picky eater, and even I was looking at all the stuff in that movie like, damn, I bet that tastes really, really good. And obviously we got that iconic scene of the food critic eating the dish, and then it takes him back to him being a kid. So we get an iconic scene in that movie as well. I love it. I don't know how you can hate on Ratatouille. Great movie, right there in the number 9. Number 8, I'm putting WALL-E. Love WALL-E. Great movie. I think their ability, especially for the first half of the movie, to kind of move the story along and tell the story without really that many words being spoken is very impressive. I think it's such a sweet story, too. I love the dynamic between WALL-E and Eva. I just love the visual, too, of all the heavy people up in the spaceship or whatever it was exactly, just being all lazy on their things with their feet up talking to each other. I think they were kind of like drawn like those thumb people from Spy Kids, except super pudgy. Like I always loved how those people look. And then just them kind of being like shown the truth too and wanting to get out and do something afterwards. Like I think it has a great ending. Fantastic movie. 8th best one in terms of Pixar. Number 7, I'm going to go with Finding Nemo. This one, I believe it came out the year I was born. I think this was their 2003 movie. This is a great movie. It's iconic. You got Just Keep Swimming. You got Shark Bait. You got Touch the Butt. You got a ton of iconic lines. It's a great movie. I mean, like most Pixar movies, apparently, it starts off just super sad with him losing his mom at the beginning of the movie. And then now we have this whole thing of Marlin and Dory trying to find Nemo the whole time. When Nemo's at the dentist and we meet Darcy, and she's got her braces, and they're all over the top, and her headgear. And then we meet all the people in the fish tank at the dentist office. I think it's a great story. I love everything about Finding Nemo. Number 7 on the list. At number 6, actually, I'm going to say this before I get into the top 6. Any one of these 6 movies, except for maybe number 1, because I was pretty sure number 1 was, but at least for 2 through 6, it took me so long to sort these. Like, any of these movies could have been anywhere between 2 through 6. I love all of these movies so much, and it was really tough to rank. But number 6, I'm going to go with Up. It's an incredibly emotional movie. It's so good. It really tugs on the heartstrings. You just feel good after watching it every time. Makes you smile, makes you cry, makes you laugh, takes you through all the emotions. You know, with Russell and Mr. Fredrickson and the emu, whose name I can't remember at the moment, and Doug the dog. And it's a great story about just traveling. The visual of all the balloons tied to the house is insanely iconic at this point. I hope they never make a sequel, because that's a Pixar movie that I believe needs to stay untouched for the rest of forever. I think the story ended perfectly. It was a complete story, start to finish. Absolutely beautiful. And I can't believe it's so low on this list, but there are just so many other Pixar movies that I like more than that, which is just crazy to think about. But one of those is our number 5 spot, Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. is so good. The visuals in that movie are absolutely amazing, with all the doors at the Scare Factory. The ideology, too, of just, like, they have to use the screams of children to power the city. I think that's such a fun idea. I also love the consistent running joke that Mike Wazowski's face is covered up all the time. Like, I think that's hilarious. And also the voice acting duo of Billy Crystal and John Goodman, I think, is only rivaled by Tom Hanks and Tim Allen in Toy Story in terms of iconic voice acting duos. I mean, Crystal and Goodman are just absolutely fantastic as their characters. I couldn't imagine anyone else voicing Sully aside from John Goodman. It's great. Also, shout out onto that DVD for Monsters, Inc. They have a short on that DVD called Mike's New Car, and as a kid, that made me laugh my ass off so many times. It still holds up today, too. Absolutely love Mike's New Car. Gets it some bonus points. And the movie, like all Pixar movies, super emotional, super great. Monsters, Inc., number 5. At number 4 it's The Incredibles. I love The Incredibles. Everyone's favorite Pixar superhero family. I love that it's just about a bunch of washed up, not washed up, but just like superheroes past their prime, you know, Elastigirl, Mr. Incredible, Frozone, and how they come back. I think it's a great movie. The way they use color in that movie, too, I think is very fascinating. How it goes from, like, when you see them back in their prime, it's these very warm tones, and then it cuts to his current, like, Bob at his desk job, Bob Parr, Mr. Incredible at his desk job, and it's just these very white, bland tones. Like, you could see the life was sucked out of him. But as he slowly gets back into his Mr. Incredible form, then you start to see these brighter colors come back into his life. Like, I always loved how they played with color in that movie, and how they set themselves up for a sequel to 14 years later with The Underminer. I love that. I think their kids, Jack, Dash, and Violet, are all great characters as well. Absolutely love The Incredibles. Never a bad watch. Fell just outside of the top 3. And that's because these 3 movies I just think are the cream of the crop. Number 3, everyone's favorite fictional racing league. It's Cars. How don't you love Cars and Radiator Springs and everything about this story? Even the soundtrack is amazing. It's just, I had some buddies in college who are absolutely obsessed with this movie, and rightfully so, because it's just fantastic. I almost put it at number 2, but I didn't. I moved it down to 3 just for some nostalgia purposes, but I need to shout out the best character in that movie. It's Guido. Guido had the most insane lock-in of all time in his pit stop. So good. So good. I love that movie so much. Radiator Springs is iconic. I wasn't as big a fan of Cars 2 and Cars 3, but that first one, man, it holds up. Going to Radiator Springs, he's learning stuff about himself and who he is. And then he goes back, and he doesn't win the race, but doesn't he win the race? You know what I mean? Because, you know, he pushes the guy across, and they showed his sportsmanship. You've seen that. You've seen Cars. If you haven't, like, what are you doing if you haven't seen Cars? Come on. All right, I digress. that was number 3 on our spot. Now we're going to get to number 2, which is Toy Story 2. I love this movie. I love the plot. I love the jokes. I love the characters. Everything about it is awesome. I think the visuals, especially when like Woody is getting stitched up and his hair is getting painted and everything, I think that's one of the most visually pleasing scenes in any Pixar movie. I'm just such a big fan of that scene. I was obsessed with it when I was a kid. I love Wayne Knight is the Chicken Man stealing the toys. I love them all trying to get back to Woody and find him. Because just how they expanded the universe too, from Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 2, I thought was really, really nice. I mean, they added Bullseye and the Prospector and Jesse, just to name a couple. I think those were great additions to the story. I think they expanded the universe in such a good way and set them up really nicely for Toy Story 3, which I thought was a fine movie. I don't love it as much as I think many other people do, but I like Toy Story 3. It's just, Toy Story 2 is just so perfect. I love everything about it. I wouldn't change a thing. I probably watched that movie on VHS tape at my nanny's with my cousins like 60 times as a kid at least. Like I could tell you all the previews probably that took place at the early part of that VHS before the movie. That's how many times I've seen it. I love it. Even when Ham loses his cork and he's like, "Oh, don't look, I gotta put my cork back in." That cracked me up as a kid. Holds a special place in my heart, especially for nostalgia purposes. I absolutely love it. And now, finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. My number 1 Pixar movie. You like that? You like that? It's Monsters University. I love Monsters University. I liked it so much when I saw it as a kid, so I had already loved it. And then I went to college and joined a fraternity and then had watched it since then, and it just became even funnier to me. Like, I think I'm a sucker for origin stories too, so just the idea that they wanted to make a movie about how Mike and Sully met in college and were in a fraternity and did all this hilarious shit in the Scare Games, and you also actually see good character development from both of these guys. Like, Mike goes the entire time thinking he's going to be a scare and then realized, like, oh, he's not suited for that, and he's able to come to terms with that and realize that and go into the field he inevitably went into working for Monsters, Inc. And then there's Sully, who just is the son of a fantastic scare. He's James P. Sullivan, and he walks in there acting like he's the king of the campus. He gets humbled. He gets shown that it's not all just being loud and being angry. And I think watching those two going from butting heads to buddies, it's just great. And I love we got that little peek behind the curtain of what those guys used to be like before working for Monsters, Inc. And just the fact that they have the whole Scare Games fraternity aspect wrapped into it makes me love it even more. And that's also another series I'd like to maybe see another Monsters, Inc. movie, but it wouldn't be bad if they left it untouched either. I wouldn't complain. So that's it. That's all I got, you know? I think, yeah, that's all I got. I think this was a long episode, too. We're about an hour and 30 minutes in right now. But I hope you still stuck with me through all of it. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about sports and, you know, at the end there, Pixar movies. Because, you know, like I said, I'm hopefully going to change up the top 10. Some weeks it'll be about sports, but some weeks I just want to make it something totally random. Just have some fun with it. So, like I said at the top, you know, subscribe if you haven't. I'm going to do something special at 100. And if we can get up to 1,000, then you can get those chapters on the timeline down here. However, the timestamps will still be in the description for you to click on. As well as links to my Instagram and my TikTok. Both of those are just at Givin Takes. If you want to follow me there, I'll be posting short form content on there. And yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I have been Nate Miller, and those were my takes.